The morning of June 6, 1944, was unlike any other. I was a young soldier in the 12th SS Panzer Division, stationed near Caen. We had heard that the Allies might attack, but we didn't know when. That morning, the sky was filled with planes. Hundreds of them flew overhead, dropping paratroopers and bombs. The ground shook with explosions. We knew the invasion had started. Fear and adrenaline surged through me. This was the moment we had been preparing for, but it felt surreal. We moved quickly to our positions near the beaches. What we saw was shocking. The sea was full of ships, stretching as far as we could see. Small landing crafts were heading to the shore, packed with Allied soldiers. There were so many of them. We opened fire with our machine guns and artillery, trying to stop them. The beach turned into chaos, but the Allies kept coming. I could see the determination in their eyes through my binoculars, and it struck me that we were facing an unstoppable force. The fighting was intense. We fired our guns, but the Allies kept moving forward. Their planes bombed our positions, making it hard to fight back. The noise was terrible, with gunfire, explosions, and screams all around. We saw many of our friends get hurt or killed, but we had to keep fighting. The Allies were determined, and it seemed like nothing could stop them. I remember the horror of seeing my comrades fall, one by one, and feeling helpless to save them. After the initial landings, we received orders to move towards Caen. The Allies wanted to capture the city, and we had to defend it. As we moved, we saw the destruction left by the fighting. Houses were destroyed, and the roads were filled with craters from the bombs. We knew the battle for Caen would be tough. The sight of the devastated landscape made my heart ache for the people who had once called this place home. When we reached Caen, we set up defensive positions. We dug trenches and prepared for the attack. The Allies soon arrived, and the battle began. The fighting was fierce. We fought street by street, house by house. The Allies had tanks and more soldiers, but we used our knowledge of the city to our advantage. The screams of the wounded and the sight of fallen comrades haunted me. Each day felt like an eternity, filled with endless violence and death. The battle for Caen went on for weeks. Every day was a struggle. We were tired and hungry, but we couldn't give up. The Allies bombed the city constantly. The noise and dust were everywhere. We had to move through the ruins, always on guard for snipers and enemy soldiers. It was a terrible time. The constant stress and fear wore us down, but we clung to the hope that we could still turn the tide. After weeks of fighting, it became clear that we couldn't hold Caen forever. The Allies had too many men and too much equipment. Our lines were stretched thin, and we were running out of supplies. One night, we received the order to retreat. As we pulled back, I looked at the city. It was in ruins, and I knew we had lost. The realization that all our efforts had been in vain was crushing. The retreat felt like a personal failure, a moment of deep sorrow and loss. Leaving Caen was hard. We had fought so hard to defend it, but in the end, we couldn't stop the Allies. The battle for Caen showed us the power of the Allied forces. It was clear that the war was turning against us. As we retreated, I thought about my friends who had fallen and the people of Caen who had suffered so much. The war was far from over, but for us, the battle for Caen was a bitter defeat. The weight of the loss stayed with me, a constant reminder of the human cost of war.